All right, so this is what I ended up with. I added a bunch of details, especially some of the text and decals. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to add additional kind of like stickers and images if you want to, how to use anchor points with normal. So it's a little bit more advanced, but I'm going to keep things very, very simple. You see how easy it is, and you will be able to do very interesting things like this type of details. Even this one right here, you see we have these edges are a little bit worn. Same thing as this kind of like speaker thing. So this type of extra details are very, very simple to do, very easy as well with the tools that come with Painter. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then we're going to wrap up this entire series with a couple of extra layers to add a bit of dust and general dirt and wear and tear on the overall asset. And then we're going to jump into the final render, which is going to be really cool. So just a recap, so I can give you kind of like a breakdown of the things that I've done. So for instance, here in the keyboard here, what I've done, let's go ahead and open up the keyboard, this one right here. So you'll see it's just a single layer that has all the channels available, and in the mask I have a bunch of those fill layers that I showed you before. So literally each one of these kind of like numbers and text are just simple layers. So if I select this one, number 6, actually let's select this one, isolate, right? Let's update that. I can just go ahead and change this to something else, right? And it's going to be updated because each one of these sections is a separate layer. So let's undo that. Just want to show you, this is kind of like what I showed you before. So this is exactly what I've done for the entire keyboard and these buttons right here. The other thing that I show you on how to create these panels and these details right here, that's basically what I've done for other sections like here. So I've added this nice panel for this I don't know, I call it a scanner, but we'll see what it is. So something like that, that's all done with the same technique. This one as well, so this sort of like, I don't know, like a grid or like a ventilation grid, it's a little bit crooked, and I'm just going to show you how to fix it, and that's the reason why I left it like that. So if I go ahead and select that specific one, let's see, let's open up the mask, and I should have named it, there we go, let's call it vent or something. So this is a path. So if I select the path, I can select that, and obviously because it is non-destructive, I can just go ahead and move it down a bit, so I can just make it a bit more, you know, a bit straighter. All right, now the cool thing as well, and this is just a recap from the previous lesson, you can change the alpha to anything else. So if I select an alpha, this is the one that I use, the shape line bending, but I can take like a triangle and update this, and you see it's just going to update, right? I can take literally anything in here, and I can also play it with the spacing. I'm gonna save this number just because that's what I like, but you can go ahead and do this type of things with anything you want, right? So let's go ahead and type lines. So this is the one that I use. Let's drop it into the alpha, and let's set the spacing to 89, I think it was. There we go. And of course, because this is just the mask, I can click on the layer and I can control the height or the depth of these details independently, right? So all of those things have been done in the same way. I just added a bit more panels here. So yeah, more repetitive, more of the same thing that I just showed you. Now the new things, or the things that I haven't shown you, are the details like this, and those are normal details. One thing that I should mention as well, the brand of this thing, like I'm just calling it BADS, as Biospectral Alien Detection System, something retro but sci-fi at the same time. This is done as well with a couple of text layers, but instead of pushing them in with the height depth, I'm just gonna push in, you know, I just like raise them up a little bit, so it's like a little bit of an extra detail in there. I mean, it's not super visible, but I just added a bit of color. Anyway, so that is basically what I've done from the previous video to this stage. So let's go ahead and create some of these normal details to add, you know, further complexity to the mesh, but I'm gonna do it in the base. So this one that I have selected. All right, so the way that this works, again, it is a little bit more advanced, but don't worry, I'm gonna keep things very, very simple. Let's go ahead and collapse all of these things, and let's actually put them in a single folder, like so that it, you know, doesn't change things too much. And let's go ahead and create a couple of layers. So I'm gonna create a fill layer, and then I'm gonna create a paint layer. We haven't used that one yet. And this paint layer, we're gonna put it at the bottom. We're gonna call it NM details, as in normal map details. I'm gonna right click and give it a color. purple, just to identify this is the layer we're going to be adding all the details. And this one we're going to call edge scratches or edges. That should be okay. All right, so I'm going to go into focus or solo mode, and the next thing that I want to show you is that even though you can create black mask and add generators and all of that, Painter also comes with some pre-made masks. So if you click on the mask in here, these are smart masks. So you can go ahead and say edge strong, drop it into the mask, and it automatically creates a mask for you. So that is pretty cool. And of course, you know, if you don't like this one, you can just go back to the mask editor, for instance, and add a little bit more texture, play around with these sliders, global balance. So this is just to add a bit of like scratches or maybe, you know, wear and tear on this object. So let's play around with the texture a little bit more. So these two layers, these texture 1 and texture 2, they relate to these inputs. So this is the texture, so you can just also play around with that to see how much of that you're getting. So yeah, they're very, very simple things, but this adds an extra level of complexity to the whole thing. So those are the kind of like the scratches or the damage around the edges. So if I select this layer, I can go ahead and make it a bit more, you know, beige or like, you know, something closer to the original plastic, I would say, that is being revealed. So not fully, you know, not fully white. All right, I'm also going to drop the roughness a bit more. All right, and let's go ahead and continue tweaking this a bit more. So I'm gonna add more texture, increase the balance a bit. All right, and this is like a little bit too uniform. So one thing that we can do instead of like playing with the textures, which sometimes you know, sometimes doesn't do much, is to add an extra layer. However, I just wanted to show you that this is a quick way of generating masks. So that's pretty much it. You can use a bunch of other ones like occlusion strong. That's gonna attach the effect to the occlusion area. So play around with these because there's some really cool ones all around. What I want to do is filter it by edge, and I think I'm gonna use, let's try this concrete edge. So it is mainly for concrete, but I think it gives me something a bit more random, which is what I'm looking for. So let's go ahead and increase the balance a bit, play with the texture 1 and 2, and add a bit of contrast as well. So yeah, I think this one is a little bit more interesting. We can definitely tweak it a bit further, but I think it works. The whole point of this is just to play around with options. Just gonna try this one more thing. Yeah, so I just want to break things up a little bit. So all right, so I think I'm gonna stick with this one just because, again, as a demonstration, I think it works, but you can play around with the different masks and further tweak them in here. All right, so that is the layer that is affecting the edges of this object. But what I want to do now is create details with the normals and utilize this edge as well, or this mask to affect whatever I put the details. So for instance, if I go to normal, and it's going to be very easy, I'll just show you how that works. I'm going to go ahead and select a brush. Any brush will do. I just like to go with the basic hard brush. That's very, very simple. And we can scroll down here all the way to the bottom where it says material, and you'll see I have already isolated the normal channel. So all you have to do is hold the Alt key and press that. And in here, let's go to the textures. This one right here, I'm gonna type hard surface or hard surface. These all come with Painter, or most of these come with Painter. And all you have to do is select something like this and drop it into the normal. Right, actually, I'm gonna select this one. This one is better. Right. So now in your brush, you'll have this effect. So let's go ahead and maybe add one here, some kind of like panel or additional panel, so that you can maybe replace the keyboards or you know, extract the keyboards and clean the keyboard or something like that. I don't know. This is what I'm thinking. So I'm gonna click on that one, and you'll see that creates that nice normal, right? So it's like adding a very nice detail very easily, but it has like some sharp edges, and all of the, you know, the damage that I added with this edge layer, let's go ahead and make it yellow as well, is not affecting this normal, because there's no way for Painter to know that this is actually a detail that you want to consider as part of the edges. Because remember, all of these edges that Painter is detecting is because we did a baking, so it is using these maps right here. But when you add a normal detail in a layer, you're not affecting any of these maps. So there's no way for Painter to know that this is a detail that you want to add or consider in terms of the damage around the edges. But don't worry, there's a very simple way of fixing this or just telling Painter how to use it. So let's go ahead and set this up, because once it's set up, you can just go ahead and paint as many details as you need in the normal, and you'll see it's going to be really, really easy. So let me undo that just so that we have a clean normal map. I'm just going to add another one in a much better way, so it's easier to see. Let's go ahead and scroll down. And I'm going to use this one, this vent 38, drop it in here. And maybe from the front, I'll add it here. So this could be like some kind of SD card or something. Let's place it in there. By the way, if for some reason you don't see the full strength of your alpha or your normal when you apply it, that it might be because you have an alpha. So you can just go ahead and remove that alpha, and that way you have the full the full size of your brush, and the normal detail will fit in it. All right, so we have that one in there, and let's add a couple more. Let's maybe this one right here. So this could be a nice one for a corner. There we go. And there's some like interesting panels that we can use, some kind of like vents, or maybe this one. We can put it here on the side. By the way, if you hold the control key and right click and left and right, you can just scale this normal detail. You can also hold control up and down with the left mouse button and rotate it. So I'm just trying to find a nice angle for this. All right, let's go ahead and place that one there. And there we go. We have now those interesting details and those panels. Now, the way that we integrate this with any other damage or things that we add in a different layer like the edges is by anchor points. So with this normal details layer selected, I'm going to click on the magic one. I'm going to click on add anchor point, and I'm going to name it. Actually, normal details is fine. So this is the name of the anchor point. You see it with this icon as an anchor. And this is basically telling Painter that we want to refer to this layer. So now let's go back to the mask. I'm going to select the mask editor, and at the bottom or near the bottom of this detail of these settings, we have these micro details. So I'm going to open up micro details, and I'm going to say I want to use the micro normal. So I'm going to click on true. So now this is telling the software that we want to use normals in a different layer, right? Or we want to have additional micro details. Now let's go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom where we have these micro normal and micro height. So I'm going to click on the normal, and we have all the resources, but instead of using a resource, I'm going to click on anchor points. So right now, this is the only anchor point. As I hover over, you see sort of like highlights it in here in the layer stack. So I'm going to click on that, and that already is referencing this layer. So now the software knows that, okay, I now want to reference this detail, and I want to add any damage or anything into or consider this detail as part of the geometry. All right, so there's one more thing that we need to do, which is at the bottom. Now that we have this normal, we need to tell the software which channel you want to reference. And because we only be using the normal, we just need to go to the reference channel, change this from base color to the normal. And just like that, you see, we now have those details happening. What's really cool about this is that now that we have those details included or referenced in a way, the things that we do here or how we change this is going to affect that part as well. So you see, as I add or remove that balance, it's kind of like including those details in the mesh maps that we created. And this is being added everywhere else as well. So we can play around with this, or if we don't want it, you can just change it for a different generator. Just keep in mind that if you change the generator that you have here, you actually have to reference those details again, right? So I'm just gonna keep it very simple. I only want a tiny bit of damage, not that much anyway. So that's kind of like what I'm after. And now we can go back to the normal details, and we can have a lot of fun just placing other details in here. So maybe let's take this vent, drop it in there. And this could be a nice vent for, this is what I was trying to do before. Let's place this one here. And we have the detail, and also you see we have around the edges, we have some of the damage. So yeah, this is a lot of fun to do. You can just, you have lots of options as well. I just want to show you one more because it's one of my favorite things to do, which is this one right here, the window 01. And with this, I use it to add kind of like small little bumps or bolts of like plastic. So, I can just go ahead and click like so, and it will just add that bolt in there. And I'm gonna add a few more, maybe inside here as well, right? So you see there's a lot of things that you don't have to do from the mesh itself. So in 3D Modeler, there's no need to add all of these details as long as you have the blocking, as long as you have the main parts of the mesh. All of these details that I'm doing are really easy to do in Painter. All right, so I'm gonna do a couple more here. Maybe reduce the size slightly, and somewhere here as well. All right, in fact, for this area, we could also use one of these panels as well that look pretty interesting. Maybe this one. Let's see. That's all right, but it's not great. Let's use that one, just to add another entry to the, I don't know, to the inside of this machine if it needs to be repaired or whatever. So yeah, as you can see, it's very simple thing to do. It becomes a bit repetitive when you do a few of these. You know, if I want to add maybe like a little vent here at the top as well, that's pretty cool. And you know, if you want to maybe create an effect that there's actually like a hollow area right here, you could also reference these normal details into another layer. But just to keep things simple, I'm just going to show you what I would do, which is, you know, fairly simple as well. So I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to leave it as a black color, like fully black. I'm going to click on rough as well. Oops. Rough. I'm going to make it very rough. I'm going to hide it with a black mask. I'm going to add a paint layer, and then I'm going to select a simple hard brush. This one right here. And then from the top, I'm just going to reveal that mask or that color like so. So I'm going to click once and then hold the shift key, which is going to give me a straight line, and do that. So again, 1, 2, go ahead and do that for the rest. All right, so that is pretty good. There we go. So you could do the same thing, and that's what I just did there is basically what I've done here for this sort of like speaker area. And that's really all there is to it. So to wrap this app and to send it for the render, what I'm going to show you is how to link layers between different objects, because that's also going to help you integrate things a little bit. So let's go ahead and create a new layer here. This is going to be like a dust layer maybe. Or it could be even like a rust, you know. Actually, let's do something a little bit more interesting, just so you can see how powerful this is. I'm gonna go ahead and type rust, and this is a metal rust that comes with Painter. I'm gonna drop it in there. I know it's for metal, but this is just to illustrate the point. We can set this to be triplanar, maybe increase the tiling a little bit. I'm also going to go to the technical parameters, and I'm going to reduce the hide range so that it's not as strong, like the amount of details. And now that I have the rust, I'm going to make it orange. I'm going to look for a smart mask. So let's try this cavity rust, for instance. Drop it in there, see what that gives us. So that's not too bad. We can also reduce the balance. I don't want to have that much rust. And just keep in mind that this is rust, but we can, you know, we can tweak it. We can add maybe more roughness, and we can set this to be almost like, you know, just like some sort of stains maybe. We can reduce the color variation, right? We can add a bit of, remove the grain, and not only that, we can also set this to be, I don't know, like overlay, or we can set it to multiplied as well. So you see, it just makes things a little bit more damaged and dirtier. And then we can come back to the mask editor and continue, you know, refining this balance and adding more of the texture and that sort of thing. So there's definitely ways of, you know, that you can keep playing around with this, and that works really well. But like this, the thing is, let's say that you're happy with this sort of damage layer that we just added with a rust material, right? And you want to add the same thing into the other parts. You could just copy this, so Control C, and then go into another one's Control V, and so on and so forth. But if you change your mind and you want to reduce the intensity of this, you'll have to do it in every single texture set. So what I'm going to do is show you how you can apply this to other texture sets. So I'm going to right click, and I'm going to click on Instantiate across texture sets. So that's going to bring this pop-up window that allows you to select which other texture set or which other objects you want to instantiate this layer or this you know, rust that we created, or this damage. So I'm going to make sure that I add it to the base light, the details probably not, the extras, the glass not, and not the screen. So basically the viewer, the extras, and the base, which are the same ones that have the same sort of plastic. So I'm going to click OK. And there we go. So as you can see, it just adds that sort of layer to everything. But what's really cool is that I'm gonna click on the mask editor here. If I reduce the balance in one, it's gonna do it in all of them, right? So that is the great thing about it. And not only this, you can add maybe another layer like this. Go to, let's type grunge, and let's add into that fill layer. I'm gonna drop this in there. There we go. And I'm gonna set it to subtract. So I'm gonna remove, if I go into the mask, I'm gonna remove from this original mask editor, I'm gonna remove some bits and pieces. So let's increase the balance and the contrast, set it to triplanar, and yeah, let's play around with this just to reduce the amount of dirtiness. And because I'm doing this within the same layer that I instantiated, the effect is happening across the entire set of textures, which is fantastic. I can also reduce things like the opacity, for example, and it's gonna happen overall. You can also change the blending mode, all of that good stuff. So it's a really, really handy way to generate a bit of damage, as you can see, and make things a little bit older and more worn, which is ultimately the look that I'm going for, right? And this needs a little bit of work, but I just want to show you the entire process. Now, to wrap up this entire series, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to render this out in Adobe 3D Stager. It's very, very simple, very easy to do. And as a bonus lesson, as I said, I wanted to show you the 3D modeler in VR. I'm going to show you how to create a tiny little creature that we can put inside the orb once this is rendered. So let's go ahead and wrap this video up by sending this to the rendering software. So I'm going to go ahead and click on File, and I'm going to click on Send To, and I'm going to click on Send to Substance 3D Stager. So this is another software that is part of the same 3D suite. So I'm going to click on that one, and this is going to basically open up this 3D Stager, which is a fantastic renderer. Very, very simple, but very powerful. And it's going to set everything up for me. All right, so here we are in Substance 3D Stager. And I'm just going to click on the Y-axis, and by default, it's going to be proportional. So I'm just going to scale this up. It's a little bit tiny. And this is our rendering. There we go. So it's pretty nice, and we have the glass and everything. We can also double click the glass and tweak this a little bit, but I'll probably do that just at the end once I add the actual creature inside from the bonus VR lesson. But it's looking pretty good. It has the IOR, or the index of refraction, distorting everything, so it looks pretty cool. And one thing I forgot to do is to enable a different color here. So that is done. Let me just go back in here. So I forgot to do that. There we go. So we have the blue one and the yellow one. So let's send it again. So actually, let's delete this one and let's do it again. Just make sure that everything is fine. All right, I'm gonna send it one more time. All right, let's go ahead and scale it up again. And cool. So now we have the blue color, and the yellow one is kind of like adding up to be a greenish tones sort of around here. But anyway, so that was the initial intention. Everything else is working fine. I'm gonna select this one with the screens. Let's go ahead and open this up. This is the outliner. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this because again, it's very intuitive, very easy to use. I'm just gonna show you how I can create a very simple and clean render for this type of asset, and that's about it. So I'm gonna click on screen. If I click on material after selecting the screen, you'll see we have the base color, we have everything plugged into the right channels. This one, in this particular case, we have an emission, if you remember. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna increase that emission channel, and I'm gonna change that emission color. It's actually using the same color that we set up in Painter, which is fine. Let me go back in Painter. So yeah, it's using that sort of like green color, but I'm gonna increase it just slightly in terms of the intensity of that emission. There we go. So that's pretty good. All right, so for the environment, or just to set up like a nice ambient for the lighting, you can hold the shift key and right click, and that allows you to rotate that environment around. And you can actually go to this tab right here, which are the lights, and that allows you to add individual lights. If you're familiar with any other 3D software or any 3D renderer, it is pretty self-explanatory. You can just drag a light in here. You can do it based on the normal. So as you can see, I'm just hovering over that sphere, and it's gonna do it based on that, right? So pretty simple stuff. I'm gonna delete that one because what I want to do is go to the bottom. Let's actually scroll this a bit more, and those are like the HDR images that you have at your disposal. So maybe I'm gonna use this Tomoko Studio. I think it's one of the best ones, and it's a neutral one. Just click and drag it in here, and that is done. And again, depending on the system that you have, this might not be as fast for you, but just like let it rest up. If you stop like moving things around, it will increase the resolution of the render. And this is not even the ray tracing render. This is kind of like a preview render. And I'm very fortunate to have an RTX 4090, so it is very, very fast, even in the ray tracing. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on this switch right here that is going to show you the real quality of the render. So the previous one is just a preview, whereas this one is gonna actually give you the ray tracing option, or like the more realistic render that is going to be kind of like the final quality, right? So once you turn that on, you know, you can just move things around and you see it just raises up really, really quickly, and then you can really see the quality of all the scratches and the roughness and everything that you have set up. Now I'm going to select everything from the folder, and I'm just going to push this up a bit because I think it wasn't on the floor, and I'm gonna set up the camera for the render. Actually, let's turn this off just for the time being, so that it's a little bit faster. I'm gonna click on the camera, so that creates a new camera, and you see it just frames that, and you can select it from here. I'm gonna double click it and call it render, and from the camera settings we can reduce the focal length or increase it. I just want to go for more of an orthographic view, so flattening this perspective. So I'm gonna go for 100 mils in here, so that flattens that perspective. And I'm gonna find a nice angle for this as well. And you can have multiple angles, by the way, and multiple cameras as well. I just wanna do a nice render here. And also I'm thinking that if I add the little creature, I wanna be able to see a little bit more of that. Now, once you establish your camera frame, make sure that you double check the lighting, because right now I have like a very strong reflection here. So I wanna have more, something like this. You know, it's more on the right hand side so I can see more of the details. But let's go ahead and play around with other options. I think this is kind of like the best angle anyway. All right, so now that we have the camera, I can go ahead and click on this drop down, go back to the viewport camera, and let's go ahead and add a kind of like a light, like a fill light coming from the left hand side, because the main one or the key light is coming from the right. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop a area light from this side. There we go. And we can just go ahead and play around with the placement of this. As you can see, the manipulators and everything that this software has is pretty much in line with the other tools that I've shown you, like Modeler and Painter in general. So there we go. So that's pretty easy. Let's go ahead and rotate it a little bit more. And I'm gonna scale it down, change the color to maybe like a bluish tone, something very sci-fi. Yeah, I think that works. So let's go back to the render camera and let's enable ray tracing again. All right, so that's not too bad, but I think it's a little bit too intense. So let's go back into the viewport, let's reduce it a bit more. And I actually think that it's a little bit too intense, so I'm gonna reduce the intensity. I just wanna have a very subtle highlight here coming from above, but I don't wanna light up the floor as much. You know what? Actually, I'm gonna delete that one and I'm gonna add a spotlight. I think that will be a little bit better, exactly for what I'm trying to do. The main light anyway is provided by the environment, so all I'm doing here is just adding a slight, you know, highlight coming from the back. That's really all I want to do. It's gonna be very subtle. So let's set this one to a blue color, just like I did before, and reduce the intensity. And we can increase the radius just so we can spread that light a bit more. Let's go back into the render. All right, so I think that works. So this is kind of like what I wanted to add. So if I turn on and off the light, you see it sort of like adds this this extra volume or this extra fill light coming from the left hand side, which helps to accentuate some of the outline in certain volumes. So yeah, I think that is working pretty nicely. So what I'm gonna do is set up the render, and before I hit the render, I'm gonna jump into the final lesson where I'm gonna show you the kind of like the bonus lesson of how to create a more organic shape using the 3D model that I used to create this asset, but in VR for a more organic stuff that we can obviously put inside this orb later on. All right, so that's pretty much it in terms of the render. You can also go to the background, and right now it's just a gray background, but you can, you know, make it any other color you want. I think just a dark gray color is perfect just to just to render out this asset. But once you're happy with this, you can just go ahead and save this file, and it will save everything that you have in here, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. If you like what you see, you can just go to render, And from this tab, you can just tweak the settings for the render. So ray tracing is the quality that I want. I want to use my GPU because obviously my graphics card is more powerful than my processor or my CPU. So this is what I want to use for the rendering, so it's faster. Here's where you can select the cameras that you want to render. So obviously I just want to leave the render on, and like I said, you can have multiple cameras and then click them all or tick them all so that you can render them at the same time. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this one sci-fi scanner or prop, and I'm going to save it to my desktop. And the format, I'm going to change it from PNG to PSD 16 bits. That's it. That's it, nothing else unless you want to change the resolution. So the resolution by default is using a 1920 by 1080 from the camera, but you can click on override camera size. You can link them together and say, you know what, give me 2.5K or something, 2500 by 1400. So that's going to be a little bit larger. All right, so you can go ahead and click on render, and that will give you the final render. So I'm going to leave this lesson here, and in the next one, I'm just going to show you how to use a 3D modeler in VR to finalize this whole concept, and then I'm going to show you the final render once I add the creature inside. All right, I'll see you in that bonus lesson.